Welcome children. We are doing 4th chapter of history, rural life and society. In today's lesson you will learn growth of commercial crops, peasant revolts, Champaran Indigo Satyagraha. Growth of commercial crops. Commercial crop, or what is the meaning of commercialization? Commercialization means the production of a commodity to make profit. Right? So commercial crop is a cash crop. Cash crop, crops which brings directly cash like cotton, sugarcane, these are cash crops. Right? So the British realized that the countryside could not only yield revenue, like they have adopted different means of revenue, no? Permanent settlement, Rohitwari settlement. These revenue system increase their income. So with time they realized that the countryside is not only could not only yield revenue, it could also grow the crops that Europe required. By the late 18th century, the company was trying its best to expand the cultivation of opium and indigo. Right? In the century and half that followed, the British persuaded or forced cultivators in various parts of India to produce other crops like jute in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in the Uttar Pradesh, etc. However, the impact of the commercialization was disastrous for the small farmers of India. It was because the increasing demand for cash crops, including the vegetables, was met by substitution of traditional food crops by the cash crops. It destroyed the self-sufficiency of the villages because it was grown for the world market and not the village community. The poor farmer suffered great losses as he had now depend on the market for his own food requirements. As a result of the commercialization of agriculture, the regional specialization grew. Regional specialization means something is known by the region. For example, Banarsi sari. Sari is woven woven in Banaras. No? So that is regional specialization. Right? Like indigo was came to be known as indigo of Bengal. Right? Even though the regional specialization grew, however, even when the village lost its isolation and got linked with the world market due to its specialization, the benefits were not reaped by the farmer but the company. It was to be seen during this period that the growth of new crops often disrupted the set pattern of peasant life and led to revolts. The cultivation of indigo was one such. How the indigo cultivation led to the peasant revolt? Let us see. The indigo plant primarily grows in the tropics. By the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used by cloth manufacturers in Italy, France and Britain to dye cloth. However, only small amount of Indian indigo reached the European market and its price was very high. European cloth manufacturers therefore had to depend on another plant called wool to make violet and blue dye. Cloth dyers, however, preferred indigo as dye because indigo produced a rich blue color, whereas the dye from the wood was pale and dull. By the end of the 18th century, Britain began to industrialize and its cotton production expanded dramatically, creating an enormous new demand for cloth dyes. While the demand for indigo increased, its existing supplies from the West Indies and America collapsed for a variety of reasons. Between 1783 and 89, the production of indigo in the world fell by half. Cloth dyers in Britain now desperately looked for new source of indigo supply. From where could this indigo be procured? Britain turns to India. Faced with the rising demand for indigo in Europe, the company in India looked for ways to expand the area under indigo cultivation. From the last decades of the 18th century, indigo cultivation in Bengal expanded rapidly, and Bengal indigo came to dominate the world market. As the indigo trade grew, commercial agents and officials of the company began investing in indigo production. There were two main systems of indigo cultivation, niche and royalty. Within the system of niche cultivation, the planter produced indigo in lands that he directly controlled. He either bought the land or rented it from other zamindars and produced indigo by directly employing hired laborers. The planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. Indigo could be cultivated only on fertile lands, and these were all already densely populated. Only small plots scattered over the landscape could be acquired. Nor was labor easy to mobilize. A large plantation required a vast number of hands to operate, and labor was needed precisely at a time when peasants were usually busy with their rice cultivation. Niche cultivation on a large scale also required many plough and bullocks. Investing on purchase and maintenance of ploughs was a big problem. Till the late 19th century, planters were therefore reluctant to expand the area under niche cultivation. Less than 25% of the land producing indigo was under niche system. The rest was under an alternative mode of cultivation, the royalty system. Royalty system means indigo on the land of ryots. Under this system, the planters forced the ryots to sign a contract. At times, they pressurized the village headmen to sign the contract on behalf of the ryots. Those who signed the contract got cash advances from the planters at low rates of interest to produce indigo. But the loan committed the ryot to cultivate indigo on at least 25% of the area under his holding. The planter provided the seed and the drill, while the cultivators prepared the soil, sowed the seed, and looked after the crop. When the crop was delivered to the planter after the harvest, a new loan was given to the ryot, and the cycle started all over again. Peasants who were initially tempted by the loans soon realized how harsh the system was. The price they got for the indigo they produced was very low, and the cycle of loans never ended. There was other problem too. The planters usually insisted that indigo be cultivated on the best soils in which peasants preferred to cultivate rice. Indigo moreover had deep roots and it exhausted the soil rapidly. After an indigo harvest, the land could not be sown with rice. In March 1859, thousands of ryots in Bengal refused to grow indigo. As the rebellion spread, the ryots refused to pay rent to the planters and attacked indigo factory. Why did the indigo peasants decide that they would no longer remain silent? In 1859, that is a period just after the revolt of 1857, the indigo ryots felt that they had the support of the local zamindars and village headmen in their rebellion against the planters. In many villages, headmen who had been forced to sign indigo contracts mobilized the indigo peasants and fought pitched battle with the lathials. Lathial means those who are carrying lathi. It's a Hindi word. In other places, even the zamindars went around villages urging the ryots to resist the planters. These zamindars were unhappy with the increasing power of the planters and angry at being forced by the planters to give them land on long lease. The indigo peasants also imagined that the British government would support them in their struggle against the planters. After the revolt of 1857, the British government was particularly worried about the possibility of another popular rebellion. When the news spread of a similar revolt in the Indigo district, the Lieutenant Governor toured the region in the winter of 1859. The riots saw the tour as a sign of government sympathy for their plight. The magistrate issued a notice stating that Royat would not be compelled to accept indigo contract. Eden was trying to calm the peasants and control an explosive situation, but this action was read as a support for the rebellion. As the rebellion spread, the intellectuals from Calcutta rushed to the indigo districts. They wrote to the misery of the Royats, the tyranny of the planters, and the horrors of the indigo system. Worried by the rebellion, the government brought in the military to protect the planters from assault and set up the Indigo Commission to inquire into the system of indigo production. The commission held the planters guilty and criticized them for the coercive method they used with indigo cultivators. It declared that indigo production was not profitable for Royats. The commission asked the Royat to fulfill their existing contracts, but also told them that they could refuse to produce indigo in future. After the revolt, indigo production collapsed in Bengal, but the planters now shifted their operation to Bihar. However, because of lack of communication with Bengali peasants or the lack of support from the local elite, the indigo peasants continued to suffer slavery-like bondage in this region for a long time. With the discovery of synthetic dyes in the late 19th century, their business was severely affected, but yet they managed to expand production. When Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa, a peasant from Bihar persuaded him to visit Champaran and see the plight of the indigo cultivators there. Mahatma Gandhi's visit in 1917 marked the beginning of the Champaran movement against the indigo planters. Thank you and have a nice day.